Welcome to the regular meeting of the Cape Coral City Council. Today is July 12th, 2023. This meeting now comes to order. Please stand for the invocation and pledge allegiance by Councilmember Long.
Thank you, Mayor. We come here tonight to celebrate the beauty of this city and the beauty of those who live here. We celebrate the fact that we have a government that listens to its people, in which we have a voice, in which we can speak and make suggestions. We celebrate tonight a government in which we can elect our officials and are heard. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Gunter.
Here.
Council members Cosden.
Here.
Cummings.
Here.
Hayden.
Here.
Long.
Here.
Shepherd.
Here.
Steinke.
Here.
Welsh.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 5, changes to the agenda or the adoption of the agenda. I would like to move item 9C2, which is the power cost adjustment update by LCEC, to directly after citizens' input, if we could.
Motion to approve the agenda with moving 9C2 forward.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6 is recognitions and achievements. 6A is presentation to employees with years of service. This time I would like to recognize the following employee for their outstanding service and dedication to the city of Cape Coral. I want to thank them for their contribution to the city and their efforts they put into their daily responsibilities to make our city a better place. Thank you for being such a valuable member to our team and for everything that you've done over the years. Madam City Clerk, once I make my way down to the front of the dais, if you would, please read the name of the recipient along with their years of service who are currently in the audience. As your name is called, please come forward.
Amy Berdier, Utilities Department, 25 years of service.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I'm Jeff Pearson. I'm Amy's boss. I'd just like to say, today we gather to celebrate 25 years of service for our esteemed colleague and friend, Miss Amy Berdier. I want to acknowledge the incredible contribution she has made to our organization. Amy has been my administrative specialist and go-to person for over 12 years. Amy will retire at the end of the month, and it's going to be hard to imagine our workplace without Amy. She has been a constant presence at the city and played a pivotal role in shaping the culture and success of our utilities department team. Ms. Berdier has always been a person who leads by example. She is hardworking, committed, and always willing to lend a helping hand. She inspired all of us to be better colleagues and better people. Her dedication to our team and our mission is something we will always remember. Thank you for being such an amazing colleague, mentor, and friend We will miss you dearly.
Again, thank you very much for everything you've done over the 25 years, and employees like you is what makes our organization so great, so thank you. I will move on to the next item, 6B, is Community Recognitions Award, and I'll turn that over to Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Come on over, Anthony. Some of the award that we give out is called the Community Recognition Award, and tonight's Community Recognition Award goes to Anthony Longstreet. Anthony is a #1 best-selling author from right here in the city of Cape Coral. In Anthony's senior year of high school, he authored his first book, I'm Proud to Be Different, and all of the council have a copy of his book as well. It's a children's book about autism, and it was done for his capstone creative writing project at Cape Coral High School. His creating writing teacher, Aaron Smoley, an IEP teacher, and Kathleen Clunan supported Anthony during his writing process, encouraging him to complete the book and eventually publish it. His book was ranked #1 on Amazon for new releases in teaching students with learning disabilities. One review of the book commends Anthony, saying he did an excellent job and that the book makes it easier for a younger audience to understand autism. A portion of the proceeds from the sale of Anthony's book goes to Autism Speaks, a nonprofit autism awareness organization, and is also the largest autism research organization in the United States. Please help thank Anthony for his contribution and his recognition.
Congratulations, Anthony. Councilmember Cosden?
I have to talk on this. Anthony, I think you have something to be proud of. He can't hear me. And the parents,
Anthony?
Anthony's parents, you have something to be proud of too. You're doing an awesome job. I'm an autism mom, and this is amazing. You should be proud of this. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item 7, approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to
Motion to
approve?
approve.
Well, we have several tonight.
Okay. You got to do them one by one, don't you?
Yeah, I'll guess.
All right.
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the special meeting of May 31st, 2023?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting of June 7th, 2023?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the special meeting of June 14th, 2023?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting of June 14th, 2023?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the special meeting of June 26, 2023?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the special meeting of June 26, 2023.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 8 is citizens' input time. Maximum of 60 minutes is set for input of matters, citizens on matters concerning city government, 3 minutes per individual. Please remember to state your name for the record. We'll utilize the podium to my left, your right.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Gloria Tate for the record. You will be receiving this evening the letter from the Florida Department of State. I'm only going to read a couple of sentences because you will be provided the letter, so you'll have copies. It says, it goes on to say that we have received state designation for historic designation for the Yacht Club Ballroom. It says staff also recommends considering applying for a potential Cape Coral Historic District that would encompass the community's core historic public buildings, businesses, and residents. The next step is the preparation of the National Registry form, which is being emailed to you, which I am already working on and will complete. The information you have provided will be added to the Florida Master Site file as part of the state's permanent record as its built environment. And I wasn't quite sure. I was shocked to get it, so I sent her back and said, am I really sure that's what I got? And so you have a copy of that letter, too. And it says Section 3, State Federal Agency, is for the State Historic Preservation Office. The head of their department will fill it out. It also says, now that we have fully assured that the yacht club is publicly owned, you can move forward without owner consent. However, we strongly recommend working with the community and gathering municipal support for the nomination. Again, listing on the National Registry cannot force the city to preserve the building or stop them from demolishing it, which I'm very aware of. This is a public building. As stated in the letter, it is owned by the people who pay taxes here. If you do plan to demolish the building, then the public should be informed of the cost of the project, how it will be paid for, and what will be in its place. The P3 concept that you all are considering will not be financially feasible for residents to use. The resort-style pool you plan to build and the P3 partnership expansive building you plan to erect will no longer belong to the community. The ballroom is a place for community events. The pool is a place for swim lessons, exercise class, and memberships for families at a minimal cost. This has always been a resource for children offering swim classes to prevent drownings. Currently in Cape Coral, if you have a child who's looking to learn to swim, you have to go to North Fort Myers for swim lessons, as they have a community center and a pool that was built by dollars from Lee County. This has always been for the people. Should this be an item for referendum if the public is fully informed about costs and final use? I have two suggestions. Rather than demolish the building with a wrecking ball, Plan A, leave the exterior walls, hire an architect and engineer to reconfigure and rebuild the space, including a second story if that's what you desire to enhance the views and keep the structure. Plan B, and I have discussed this with the mayor, is to move the building to Cultural Park and reset the building to become part of a historic preservation area that would honor those who helped finance and rebuild the building. The Museum of History has a rose garden and part of the Museum of History. This would become a tourist attraction. The city is bursting at the seams with over 200,000 people. May I please have a minute, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Thank
Hurry
you.
up.
The area would become a tourist attraction and, more importantly, a community center. The city is bursting at the seams with over 200,000 people, and we do not have a community pool or a community center. We have the Lake Kennedy Senior Center for 200,000 people. You all keep referencing the next 60 years. Another storm can take down the next building you put up, although it will be a P3 and someone else's problem. If you're planning for the next 60 years, we need a community center for our future. Please consider one of these options. And finally, please stop the demolition of the building in October and give our group and the city time to work towards moving the building. And I did discuss with the mayor yesterday about Flint and Doyle. They are a moving company in Lee County that work all over the state. And they are coming out hopefully tomorrow. They do not need, they said they just want to look before they meet with you.
Thank you.
So we are moving on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. John Karcher here, 15 years in the Northwest Cape. I wanted to share with you just a few of Michael E. Chisholm's job positions and his amazing growth within our city government. First, water plant treatment trainee. Next step, water plant treatment operator. Public Works business manager. City Business Manager, Senior Public Work Director, Chief Emergency Management Operations, Liaison to Lee County on Emergencies, Assistant City Manager, of course, and of course, currently the interim City Manager. I'm going to steal from the Mr. Mayor here because he did a nice post in his monthly update to the residents and had some comments that were great for Michael. He said Michael has diligently fulfilled his interim city manager role using his contributions, his experience, his guidance, and stability. He also said that we must have a city manager who will lead our city with vision. I believe that a great number of us in this room tonight and around the city that couldn't make it believe that Michael would excel in everything required of him. My question to you is, what more could we want, guys? We got him. He's the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Lou Navarre, long-term resident, Cape Coral. Public trust, I like that, Mayor. And you want to restore it in voting, but what about restoring it to the council? Be careful what you say. People may be listening to you, and I am. How is the trust won by the council? Uncontrolled spending on lawsuits. Frivolous ones, in my opinion, some of them. City attorneys making $247K, let's give them something to do. Why do we need all these extra millions you're spending on outside lawyers? And Loch Ness, Waste Pro, Mr. Hernandez, Ms. Cummings, just to name a few lawsuits, 23,000, and you're worried about giving up 900 hours and crashing all those committees? Doesn't make sense to me. Cut the taxes. You forgot about the utility tax, Mayor. I'd like a budget audit. I wanted to talk to the committee that is still in business, and hopefully maybe we can dwell on that. Restore faith, don't tear down the yacht club. Restore the Youth Advisory Board. Ms. Cosden, you said last week, well, they're a watchdog. No, Anthony was a perfect example. Put a student like that on there like we had it. No, even Joe Mazurkowitz didn't like that. You need to make a motion, Ms. Cosden, restore it. Why did you sunset them anyway? I told you, 900 hours. Code, council, you're going to get a code enforcement. You got my picture? There it is. That is the plant. Those were made in 1990. Ask Joe Mazurkowitz. They were supposed to look beautiful like houses. You barely mowed the lawn. I'm going to file a code complaint. Let's see what code does with that. Those were made to look beautiful, but we've forgotten. Well, you all haven't been here anyway. What would you know? But that needs to be done and fixed. So, you know, I really am running out of words. You all come, I come here and you just don't listen, but think about that. Restore faith in city council and talk to Joe. And by the way, $9.50 was the dual water plant and the sewer there, not $12.50, which you raised. I said you have not been here. Thank you. Talk to Joe. Thank you, sweetheart.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Benasia, and I reside on Pelican Boulevard, just north of Rotary Park in Cape Coral. I'm opposed to the proposed Redfish Point development on 350 acres of wetlands south of Rotary Park. I'm asking the council members not to grant the landowner's request to access through Cape Coral City property. I was flooded during Hurricane Ian, as were many of my neighbors. There are 3,500 residents that are directly impacted by this proposed project. I'm opposed to this project for the following reasons. The loss of critical wetlands, which buffer the city from storms, would raise the risk of flooding in adjacent residential areas. Lesser storms than Ian can cause the same level of flooding. The resulting traffic increase on Pelican Boulevard potentially could result in expanding the number of lanes, removing the bike lanes, narrowing the median, or widening the road. Construction traffic could take 3 years. The impact on all the wildlife that call the area home will be devastating. The development will impact migratory and non-migratory birds, bobcats, coyotes, and a variety of other species that call that area home. Dredging would be required for the 200-slip marina and would have additional environmental impacts on the aquatic life of the Caloosahatchee River, including manatees. The developers want to construct an entrance road on Rose Garden Road at Southwest 6th Place, just south of Rotary Park. The 100-foot entrance that's envisioned will be 4 lanes, a median, bicycle path, and sidewalks. This road would transverse the total property. This 8.85-mile road would cover 10 acres and require substantial fill to elevate the road above base flood elevation. This would drastically change the hydrology and ecology of the southern part of Rotary Park, which is tidally dependent wetlands. Access to the property, which is landlocked, would require the city to amend a conservation easement established in 1991 between the City of Cape Coral and the State Department of Environmental Protection. I'm asking the City Council members not to grant access through city property. I've created a website, Protect Our Wetlands in Cape Coral, to raise awareness in the community. Thank you for an opportunity to speak.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, I'm Doug Saland. I live at 3810 Southeast First Place in Cape Coral. 2 issues here. The first is the Palm Tree Boulevard median. We've lived here 17 years, and we've gone through this most of the time we've been here. Some of the parkways where it's a split street with grass or growth in the middle are well maintained. Ours isn't. I have had to call over the years many times, and I've tried just recently to contact city people to no avail. They finally mowed the grass yesterday. It was only about 18 inches high. They never weed whack around the trees, so it's all shaggy looking. They never edge along the pavement. It looks pretty rough. Now, they mowed it, and grass is all in the street and everything else, and I'm asking the council to get after whoever is in charge of the mowing and maintenance of city-owned property to get a schedule going so that this is maintained on a regular basis. They always let it get at least 18 to 24 inches high, full of thistles, before they do anything. Enough said about that. The main complaint is this water sewer project that's going on. Anybody that's ridden through our area realize they've made a ghetto out of our section. They started early in the year, and we thought, well, we're going to get new infrastructure because our water, not the sewer, but the water has been an issue for quite a time where these old pipes, it's old. They rot out, they bust, the street floods, they come and dig it up and patch it in. They put these new mains in there, and about a month and a half ago, I see a city pickup truck sitting by the triangle there, and I stopped, and the guy was very polite. I don't know his name. I said, are you connected with this project? He said, yes. I said, could I ask you a couple questions? I said, when are they going to start tearing up all the finger streets and redoing the infrastructure? He said, they're not. This is a project that was conceived and done with nobody knowing it, in my opinion, to supply water and sewer to the new big things, the big high-rise behind Ace Hardware over there, the deal going up on Cape Coral Parkway that needs a lot of water and sewage, and there's a third that I'm not exactly sure where it is, but this has been put in to supply them. I said, well, how long is it going to be before you're going to start repairing our area? Oh, it could be 3 to 5 years. We don't drink the water. Most of the time it doesn't look bad, but a lot of times it'll have a tannish look where you know they had a break and dirt's in it. Me and most of my neighbors do not use the city water for anything other than flushing toilets and taking a shower. We use strictly bottled water. I wouldn't trust it. They say it's fine, it's pure, good to drink. I'm not chancing that. But my real complaint is we want this cleaned up. In any other municipality, and we've seen it, when the city has someone that's in charge of this water sewer project, that person has a responsibility. They hired a contractor to come in and do this.
Thank you, sir.
They need to keep on top of them and see that it's done. The patch paving.
Thank you.
What?
I said thank you. Your 3 minutes is up, and I know the city manager is taking notes on what you said. So we can get staff to get with you.
Well, good evening. My name is Jerry Smith. I live on 38th Avenue up in Northwest Cape. And I just wanted to come before you today as president of the newly elected president of the Northwest Cape Coral Neighborhood Association. Actually, we're representing right now, my last numbers are about 1929 members and about 1,040 households. There are some members here who I thought would be more effective if I just come up and talk and save them the trip and you the time. So can I ask everyone from the NWNA membership that has joined me today just to stand for a minute? So that's a lot of 3-minute discussion. So thank you very much, and thank you for coming. So Mayor Gunter, members of the City Council, thank you for your service. Your efforts are appreciated. Last night we had a nice meeting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for coming, Keith for coming. But I think citizens sometimes overlook the work that you are faced with doing. So I just wanted to give you just a little call out there and thank you. I'd like to comment on the business section agenda item pertaining to the city manager position. On behalf of my family and the membership of the NWNA, I really urge you to reappoint and appoint Michael Ilchisen as city manager. We all like Mike. Anyone that has met Mike that I've been in company with, and we have a big neighborhood association, you have to know how well received he has been. He went out of his way to come visit us. But here we are, February 17th, 2023. Collectively, he got together. He made a sound business decision at that time to ask Mike to serve as interim city manager. So it's been 4 months, 13 days. And look at what Mike has accomplished under his leadership. So 4 months, 13 days. His memo of accomplishments is attached in the meeting agenda today. And I urge you, if you haven't read it, you have to look at it because you have to see what was been done. Number one, I think everyone, I'm running out of time already, but number one, I think, is everyone's roof has been hit. And I think there's a delay in permitting. I think what he's done there alone has helped so many people. So I'd love to see what he can do and his management team over a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-year period. I think, his presence has been contagious with our membership. We've established a partnership with the city manager's office, Maureen. I want to continue that. It took us a long time to get there. We can do a lot of great things together. And please, I urge you to make this man your permanent city manager. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Don Afking, Cape Coral resident. I was asked on behalf of a significant amount of residents in the Southwest Cape to come and speak on their behalf as they would like to see Mike Ilchisen appointed as permanent city manager. I've worked with Mike in the past on projects, and one thing about Mike, if he says he's going to do something, it gets done. And I think that's the main thing. Don't have to go into too many things, but again, speaking for a lot of citizens in the Southwest, they definitely want to see Mike made permanent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Terry Fitzgerald. I live in Southwest 36th Place in Cape Coral. I just want to share my thoughts on Resolution 157-23, and that's to vacate the alley and the easements on the northwest corner of Burnt Store Road and Embers. This parcel at one time was the Commercial Activity Center, and I'm not sure where the zoning changed on that, but I was frustrated when I heard it had changed, but then I was encouraged because of the concept of having the gateway to Cape Coral and having the landscaping at the beginning of Burnt Store Road coming in, having restrictions on the frontage and the type of businesses that can be put in there. But now my understanding is that because of Ian, the state has said you've got to put a hold on those limitations. So I'm hoping that they'll be lifted, and when they are, I'm hoping that improvement comes down to Embers Parkway, because I understood from someone that it was not going as far south as Pine Island Road. So thank you for that concept. We really appreciate it. Embers is going to be one of the main accesses to Seven Islands. It concerns me greatly with this easement that there's going to be a storage facility there. It just doesn't go with the area. Being the gateway, they're already planning on doing the landscaping in our median. We're thrilled about that, to have nice landscaping going in there, so I don't want the distraction of having a storage facility there. Another concern I have is on Northwest 32nd Place. That's going to be the only entrance and exit to that storage facility. There are high-end homes there. They're my neighbors. I live south of Embers, so it's not my area, but I have a real concern about all those properties in there that are paying high taxes are going to have all these U-Haul trucks and everything going into a storage facility. I just think it's the wrong place, and I would encourage you. I realize this isn't a zoning issue, but I think the resolution, if you could not pass that, I think that would help us greatly. So I'm respectfully requesting that you don't approve the resolution to vacate the alley, to allow the facility not to be built. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, good afternoon. My name's Eileen Venezia. I'm here to voice my opposition of the Redfish Point mixed-use preserve area. The developers wish to have an area similar to Tarpon Point. Now, I didn't live in Cape Coral when Tarpon Point was developed, but I know there was a great deal of opposition to it. Acres of trees and wetlands were destroyed to build the tower, hotel, and marina. We know how important the mangroves and wetlands are to protect inland area. Think of how much more the area north of Tarpon Point would have been protected if those trees and wetlands were still around during Hurricane Ian. We don't need another Tarpon Point. We don't need the land in Piney Point to be destroyed and increase the chance of more flooding when the next hurricane comes. When property insurers look at houses to insure or renew policies, they look at the house and surrounding areas and prior claims. After Ian, many people lost their homeowner policies. And just yesterday, another insurance company pulled out of the Florida market, and those policyholders must now find a new insurer, and some people are having a hard time. This impacts their houses. This impacts their mortgage. Please do not let this happen to Cape Coral residents. Thank you.
Mayor Gunter and members of the council. My name is Bill Barrett, and my wife and I live on El Dorado Parkway West, just directly across from Rotary Park and Redfish Point. I am urging you to oppose the proposed rezoning and the huge development at Redfish Point. Last September, when Hurricane Ian hit, my wife and I suffered significant damage to our house and property. Due to the wind and storm surge, we lost the complete inside of our house. All floors, walls, closets, appliances, part of the roof, years of memorabilia, and 90% of everything that we owned, including our 2 cars and our boat. We were able to evacuate only hours before the hurricane hit. We have only just now moved back into our house. The damages to our neighbors were of the same magnitude, significant devastation of their properties. I'll make my message today very brief. If it had not been for the mangroves at Redfish Point, the damages would have been even worse, far worse. The mangroves of Redfish Point are our first, and they are our only defense we have against future hurricanes. Remove even part of those mangroves, and the flooding will become even worse than that of Hurricane Ian. Remove the mangroves, and we will be endangering the properties of 3,500 people in our neighborhood. But even worse, should those mangroves be removed, lives will also be endangered, and undoubtedly lives will be lost. Again, mangroves are our only protection. Mangroves save lives. So I urge you to oppose the rezoning and the huge development at Redfish Point. The choice is simple. Approving this development will significantly increase the danger of flooding and damage to the properties, and quite probably the lives of many residents in South Cape. I urge you to do the right thing. Oppose this rezoning of Redfish Point and oppose this huge and endangering development. I thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor Gunter, members of the City Council, good afternoon. My name is Patty Gard. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this afternoon to express my strong opposition to the proposed Redfish Point development in the wetlands just south of Rotary Park. Just over a decade ago, my husband and I visited friends on one of the 8 lakes in the Southwest Cape. The night before we were to return home, our friend said, "There's a house for sale in the lake next door. Why don't you have the real estate agent show it to you?" We had had such a wonderful week, amazing week, getting to know this city that we decided, hey, we'll take a look at this house on El Dorado Parkway West. We bought it that night. We soon fell in love with Rotary Park just across the street from our home. The green space provided habitat for wildlife, birds, butterflies, as well as many endangered species. We were in awe of the mangroves as we walked out the path to the observation deck where we could see acres of wetlands. We loved the manatees and dolphins and pelicans that visited our lake. This truly was paradise. 10 years later, on September 28th of last year, our lives changed forever. Our home received significant damage from storm surge and flooding caused by Hurricane Ian. Fortunately, we were able to evacuate, but we were terrified when we saw videos of the water rushing down Rose Garden toward our home. We lost everything, including our cars, boat, landscape, most of our personal belongings. We spent 6 months in a rental property while our roof was repaired and the total inside of our house was totally rebuilt. We are still in the process of furnishing our home due to long wait times for furniture. Thus, just imagine how stunned we were when we learned that this site, which is currently zoned preserve, was being considered for a huge development. There's a reason that current zoning requires this land to be preserved. It's a given that we are going to experience more hurricanes, possibly more powerful than Ia, as well as sea level rise. How could we consider approving this huge development knowing that mangroves help protect coastlines from flooding when hurricanes hit, and also help stabilize coastlines and guard against erosion? It's inconceivable to think that this rezoning could be considered putting lives at risk. I urge you to reject this proposal. It's the right thing to do for the future of our city and for the safety and well-being of our residents and our wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you.
How you doing, Mayor and City Council? I wanted to come here today. My name is Patrick Rossi. I'm Director of Operations for McClellan Market, but I've also been a resident of Cape Coral since 2001, but my family has been coming to Cape Coral since the late 70s. So I was here when 75 stopped at Tampa. Santa Barbara didn't have any lights through the whole stretch. And I just wanted to be here to encourage you guys to appoint Mike from interim city manager to city manager. As a business here in Cape Coral, I've had some interactions with Mike. Met him a couple of years ago when he was Director of Public Works. But more recently, lately, with all the things that we've been through, was aware that he got appointed interim city manager in February in the middle of probably the biggest hurricane recovery that we've had in a long time. And it was clear that you guys picked a person that didn't need to catch up, wasn't a learning curve at all. He was the right person then, and I believe he's the right person now as a business person and a longtime resident of Cape Coral. We also worked together, or got to interact with Mike when we have Governor DeSantis here at Mercola for the businessmen's and leadership meeting after the hurricane. He also was with us when we did probably the biggest hurricane preparedness expo that I think we've done just a few months ago. And then I was really struck when we had all of you at our place for your summer retreat, and I was able to sit through that entire meeting, and it was a budget meeting, I believe. Wasn't very exciting, but just his knowledge and grasp of the facts and what's happening in a city this size and how quickly we are growing certainly is the person that I think you guys rightly chose to be interim and should rightly choose to be our city manager. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Kevin McGrail. I'm in District 5. I've lived in the city of Cape Coral 35 years. Mayor Joe Mazurkiewicz was the mayor when I showed up. My son went to school with Mike Gilchism. You have a man who is your current interim city manager who has deep, deep roots in this city. I firmly believe the mistakes made hiring city managers in the city of Cape Coral was that they looked at comparable large cities, totally ignoring the fact that they had no love for Cape Coral. I hired a city manager from Michigan. His name was John Zerlag. He was the longest sitting city manager in the city of Cape Coral. Turns out he loved Cape Coral enough to bring his family down here. Mike doesn't have to bring his family here. He's got deep roots. He's got the respect you've heard from many speakers before me. He's got the respect of your citizens. He's got the respect of your employees. He deserves the respect of this council. Take his position and make it a full-time city manager. Mike has earned that, and if he has a problem with you, he'll work it out. He won't call you homophobic and racist on his way out of town. So I firmly, firmly support this council giving Mike Gilchism the permanent city manager position. It's the right thing for this council. It's the right thing for Cape Coral. Thank you.
Thank you. Keep your applause to yourself, please.
Well, I was going to say something about Mike, but I don't really know what else there is to say except the Northwest Cape likes Mike. I want to thank Councilman Long for being at our meeting last night. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate you being there. I'm the communications person with the Cape Coral Membership Association. And I just want to bring up the vacation 22-0033 one more time. The easement that is before the council today, it was decided and approved by the committees that were considering that easement prior to the beautification project that's now in place or going to be in place for both the streets leading into the Seven Islands Resort. Now, I get around the state quite a bit, and I've seen the resort entrances to the Naples Grand Hotel Resort, to the Boca Raton Resort down in Miami. And those medians leading up to those resorts are absolutely stunning. I don't know why a Cape Coral's resort, Seven Islands Resort, can't have as equally stunning medians going into there. But I think that causes you to have to revisit that vacation request because the company probably didn't realize that there was going to be full-length medians there and affect his entrances and egress and entrance from that project. And I think that we should take the time to look at that for the sake of the developer as well as for the easement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council. My name is Joseph Davis. I live at Southeast 16th Street, Cape Coral. I'm also a CERT volunteer for the fire department. I urge you to appoint the interim city manager to city manager. I've worked with him during Hurricane Ian, and he's a guy that knows the infrastructure of the city, and I think it'd be a great fit for the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. John Bashaw, Northwest Cape Coral. Thanks for the opportunity to speak on the city manager position. I've lived in the Cape since 2013, and I've had the opportunity to work with and observe 2 city managers and 1 interim city manager. And I'd like to provide my endorsement for Michael Chizen to be the next city manager for the city of Cape Coral. My observation of Michael Chizen is that he's a subject matter expert in a lot of the issues that are unique to Cape Coral. He's also a strong manager, and he's able to manage through crisis, such as Hurricane Ian and the recovery. He's a very strong leader that inspires people to be the best that they can be. And leadership and management are 2 completely different things. He happens to have skills in both. But to me, one of the most important traits is his passion for the city. What he is all about, and what I have observed in him, is he is all about making this a better place to live. So please, let's make quick work of putting Mr. Ilchizen under contract to be the next city manager for the city of Cape Coral. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Ken Hawks. I came down from Boston just last year.
Could you say your name again, sir?
Yeah, Ken Hawks.
Thank you.
And I came down last year from Boston just before the hurricane, just in time for the hurricane. So this is about the election, about Patty Cummings. So I've spent a lot of time researching this. I've looked at old Cape Coral council meetings, the archive footage. I've listened to Patty Cummings' statement several times, and so it's my analysis that she intended to move. That was always her intent to move. Her campaign had been infiltrated, and people were setting her up to prevent that move and to jerk her around. You know, people ended up going into her house, you know, befriending her, taking pictures of her house with her kids, where her kids live. This was meant to be an October surprise. This was all her problems of not having moved was supposed to come out right before the election in an October surprise. But then the hurricane hit, so that threw everything off. And so she got elected. She's the only one up here who's been elected in a normal fashion without these background things. The last mayor's election was an artificial opposition. That's why Patty Cummings is having problems with those people too. Why, you know, and that's sloppy. That's going to come out. So yeah, it's Dan Shepard was sent to her campaign. Dan Shepard's he's the rat. Like I'm glad I watched Patty Cummings over and over. Yeah, you'll figure it out. It's all gonna come around. But from the very beginning was a setup. So what's interesting is if you look at some of this boathouse stuff. And by the way, I think Patty Cummings should come out in favor of the boathouse. I think we're gonna need everyone who's like upset at her is angry.
Sir, just remember, you got to address us as a
I only got a
council.
couple minutes. Yeah. So
Did you hear what I said?
Did you guys also did with Tom Hayden?
Did you hear what I said, sir?
Did
you hear what I said?
No, you're running my clock's running. Hold on. Wait,
All right, no, I said you have to address us as a council.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Okay, boy. Tom Hayden is
Sir,
not really in favor
sir,
of the boathouse. That was a
I'm only
setup,
going to
too.
tell you one more time.
You'll figure it out.
Your time's up, sir.
Boy.
Your time's up.
I'm going with the woodshed.
Thank
I'm
you.
taking you to the woodshed.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak during citizens' input? Seeing none, citizens' input is now closed. Is there any council discussion on citizens' input? Okay, seeing
Yeah,
none, we will
yeah.
move on. I'm sorry, Councilmember
Thank you.
Cummings.
Yes. The gentleman, I think he left for the palm tree median. Mike, is there any way we can get someone out there to take a look at that, stating that the grass is overgrown? Are you familiar with this?
I am. As previous Public Works Director, the City of Cape Coral only has 2 crews that do maintain unimproved medians. And so what happens is this time of year, during the rainy season, at the end of our cycle, if you heard the residents say, it always gets to about 12 to 14 inches before we cut it. It's the time delay required for the 2 crews to run through. We could increase crews, we could outsource it and bring in another crew. It's all for discussion, but in the past that has not been the option because it's an isolated couple of months in the rainy season when they're having to spend more time maintaining all the areas that they maintain. So I am familiar with it,
Okay.
But I'll get with the Public Works Director, I'll get with Persides, and we can discuss some type of supplemental crew or cutting during this time of year and see if we can identify some funds.
And what about the water? He was saying that the water is coming out tan. Can we get someone out there to take a look at that?
Yeah,
Being city water?
I'm gonna get that to Jeff Pearson, and what happens in that situation is when they're disturbing the pipes, cutting into them and adding different lines or replacing the lines, it knocks off stuff that otherwise typically isn't jarred inside the pipes, and so then that transmits through the pipe. As the resident indicated, it is safe. There is a disinfectant in there. What happens when we get reports of this, which Jeff will take care of, we'll set up a blow-off valve on a fire hydrant and basically flush out the dirty water so it doesn't make its way into the residence. So we'll take care of the dirty water, and then I will get with the Public Works Director on how to resolve this situation, because it is a recurring issue during the peak of the rainy season, now through September.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cosden.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, about the Yacht Club ballroom, I thought it was an interesting idea to move the building, as crazy as it sounds. I really do want to know more about it. And so I understand, Mike, you're going tomorrow, right, to talk to, no, you're not. She is. Okay. Are they sharing information with you?
So this is one of the questions I was going to ask at the end of the evening. As you are aware, the council has been pretty clear and concise to me that move forward with demolition. So I have made it clear to my staff that we are not going to do anything counterproductive to that measure. So I don't believe they need to get in the building, but to this point we have not allowed anybody other than council members inside. So I'm assuming what they're going to do is from the outside, which is okay. The park is now open. The boathouse is open, so they could walk around, take pictures, get a general idea. If they come back in order to give a former Councilwoman Tate more information, that they need information from the inside, I would prefer that I just get some direction tonight on whether or not you even want to make that an option. Otherwise, I'm going to be forced, when asked, to come and ask you anyway.
Okay. Do you want to save that discussion for later or talk about it now?
I'll defer to the City Council.
Doesn't matter if we do it now or later. I mean, it's the same thing. We are on citizens' input as far as if council has any discussion, so.
Yeah.
That citizen's input, I mean, I would prefer to maybe do it right before our reports or something, but.
That's fine. Thank you.
Just remind me when we get to that. Councilmember Welsh.
Thank you. I wanted to bring up the palm tree median as well. Isn't that one of the CRA projects to then go ahead and curb and landscape that? So I believe in the near future.
Yeah, that's a good point. So that median was funded to be ultimately improved with landscaping, irrigation. It is under access management, so if you heard about the public meeting that occurred regarding the Embers access management, Palm Tree is along the same path. So there'll be a public meeting set up to show where medians will be, openings will either be added or closed, where there intends to be lighting and or landscaping, and then we'll take that and actually improve it. So that's why I was saying I think we're at a point where we're basically going to bridge maybe this year and next year, and ultimately it will be fully improved with landscaping and irrigation and wind up with a private contractor to have its own cycle just like all the others. So I think it's appropriate at this point that we can look at supplementing that because we're going to wind up turning it over to the private sector shortly.
Yeah, I just wanted to let the resident know that that was one that was in the works of getting improvements, so thank you.
Any other council discussion on citizens' input? Okay, let's move on then. Next item on the agenda that we moved up tonight was 9C2, power cost adjustment. I believe we're going to get an update from LCEC.
Yes, you are going to get an update from LCEC. So good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me speak again this afternoon. I appreciate that opportunity. I just have a brief verbal update for you on the LCEC power cost situation and related power cost adjustment or PCA rate to our customers. As a reminder, as a not-for-profit electric distribution cooperative, the LCEC rates for electricity are set by the Board of Trustees to recover costs and produce sufficient financial results for our lenders. There are no profits or earnings for investors. Any margins left over after costs are covered are allocated to the LCEC membership. LCEC has two primary rate components, the base rate and the PCA rate. The base rate recovers day-to-day operating costs and the majority of the power costs. The PCA rate is a flexible rate based on a formula in the tariff. Its purpose is to recover the cost of the actual cost of power that's not recovered in base rates. It fluctuates as that true cost of power fluctuates. It's largely driven by fuel costs to generate power. And 100% of the PCA rate goes towards power cost recovery and is passed directly through to our power suppliers. So there are no margins earned on that PCA rate. In August of last year, I explained the rising power cost situation at that time, and that was primarily driven by exponentially increasing natural gas costs, with natural gas being the primary fuel source for power generation. Also driving up the cost of power was the LCEC share of renewable generation investment by our power supplier, specifically solar generation investment. At that time, we had significantly increased the PCA rate to pay for the escalating power generation and solar investment costs. Then in April of this year, I provided another update on the power cost situation. At that time, we were seeing a promising decrease in the natural gas prices. Natural gas prices have now leveled off to a more sustainable and manageable level. The outstanding variable at that time was the amount LCEC would incur for the annual generation demand true-up from our power supplier. And just as a point of reference, it was $20 million last year. We were hopeful we'd be able to recommend a PCA decrease for customers to the LCEC Board of Trustees in the June-July timeframe. And I'm happy to report that we were able to accelerate that recommendation to the board for a PCA decrease of $14.15 per 1,000 kilowatt hours usage. That was done in May, and it was effective June 1st. So we've all seen that come through now on our June power bills. The market price for natural gas has been sustained so far for 2023 at less than a third of what it was last fall when I spoke to you. Additionally, the annual generation demand true-up from our power supplier was lower than expected. So both of these scenarios then, that is the sustained lower cost of natural gas along with a lower generation demand true-up from our power supplier contributed to that PCA rate decrease that we just implemented. So now our total residential rate per 1,000 kilowatt hour usage is $140.20, and that came down from $154.70 when I met with you in April. So those were my speaking points, and I will be happy to address questions.
Any idea, looking into the future compared to, say, where we were 18 months ago? Do we have probability where we may get back to that point as far as the power cost adjustment?
I don't know if we'll make it to that point, but we are definitely considering recommending further power cost decreases to the Board of Trustees. From a timing perspective, I think we're going to want to wait a couple months, see how this lower rate does, see what natural gas does, see what the investment costs do, but we will have ongoing discussions with our board throughout the rest of this year.
And how often does the board get updated on that? Is that on a monthly basis?
Correct. They are updated on a monthly basis, yes.
Thank you. Council members, thank you.
Thank you. As with fuel prices having so much to do with the rates and the Board of Trustees evaluating this on a monthly basis, does a lag in the increase or the decrease tend to happen more in escalating fuel costs or in declining fuel costs? Is there some type of a pattern in that, since we've most recently been looking at declining fuel costs? Do the adjustments happen more slowly then, with the fear that that's just a blip and that the prices will go back up again? Could you shed some light on that?
Absolutely. The lag, the actual lag is the same in terms of when prices change in the market for fuel and natural gas in particular versus when they flow through our power bill. So it's about a 2-month lag before we see the true up and make the payment to the power supplier on that. It's a little bit opposite of what you were suggesting, where we will hold back typically on raising the PCA a little longer to see if the gas prices will come down and try not to have to pass that through to customers. And then we will try to bring a decrease through more quickly. With the fluctuation in the market of natural gas, I think we're going to have to look at it on a more frequent basis. We've not changed policy on that yet, but it's definitely something we'll be talking to the board about on a monthly basis. So as we are updating them monthly on cost of power, they may choose to make changes more frequently to better match what the actual market is doing for those fuel prices.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Long.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, thank you for coming out and updating both ourselves and our residents. It's obviously something that affects everyone, and so it's important that you come out and provide us this information. When we're talking about the PCA, I guess I was just, as I'm listening to you speak, and I've heard you speak on it before, is this more of an internal policy that you guys have? Is there any sort of state or federal oversight or governmental oversight at all that regulates you guys on how you conduct the PCA, or in turn how the funds are held, or a limitation on the number of funds that you're able to hold when you do this?
Sure. The PCA rate is really very standard throughout the industry. So when you look at our tariff and our PCA rate formula, it's very, very similar to what you would see from an investor-owned utility or a municipal utility. And the whole purpose of any of the utility PCA rates is to be able to fluctuate the power cost rate charged to customers to better match what's happening in the market, similar to what we just discussed with the last question. So that's the idea, is to have that flexibility. In the entire industry, there are typically no margins or profits earned on that particular rate element. So its purpose is solely to move as power costs move, and it's just a pass-through. For an investor-owned utility, it's going to be just to recover their cost. In the case of an electric distribution cooperative like LCEC, it goes right to our power supplier to pay for the higher cost of power that they had to charge to us.
I appreciate that, but I think the question was, I didn't ask if it was an industry standard. Is there any regulation that occurs as far as oversight to ensure that you guys are, because, you know, by your own account, I think, just to cut through it, so you guys can cover your tail on these expenses that you're passing along. But I think that, you know, those figures are covering that tail, so to speak, is my phrase, is objective based on the person that's determining that in each in this respective entity. So who, if anybody, is providing that oversight?
Okay, thank you for further clarifying that. So we do file the formula in the tariff, so that's where the PSC oversight is going to come in, is an approval of that formula. Does somebody come in and check the math, if that's what you might be asking on a monthly basis. No, that's done internally. We're audited by an external audit firm, so they are definitely going through that when they conduct our audit to ensure, first and foremost, that we're doing things per the tariff in accordance with what was approved by the PSC, and that the accounting is correct and it actually is a pass-through to members. So the external auditors really would be the overall regulation on that, and to answer your question better.
Those are auditors that are hired by you guys to come in and make sure that your books are correct.
Correct.
I'm not making any insinuation, I'm just clarifying. So, so again, just to kind of circle back again, there's nobody telling you how much you can or cannot recover. There's no limitation imposed on you guys as far as this is a little too much or this is not enough. It's an internal policy that you guys have.
Well, the regulation
I mean, technically,
is,
what's I guess just get it straight to
Sure.
it. Who or what is preventing you guys in a
Sure. The Board of
what-if
Trustees,
scenario
so
from-
yeah, sure. Ultimately, the Board of Trustees has that regulatory authority to approve management's recommendations for where rates should be set, what rates are recovering. And so that's done based on actual costs that are incurred. I don't know if that's helping, if I'm explaining that a little better.
I think I got my answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. You're welcome.
Councilmember Welch.
Thank you. As we all know, we're all equity owners in LCEC. So my question is, do any of the PCA funds result in equity that will actually come back to us as owners?
No, since the PCA rate does not contribute to margins, it's just a cost pass-through to the power supplier, it does not go into equity. So there's nothing that would build equity from the power cost adjustment rate or the power cost segment of base rates. That also is just a pass-through to the power supplier. So the only thing that goes towards margins and therefore to equity is about 35% of the base rate. So that covers the operating costs and contributes to margins at the rate we need them to be for lenders and covenant compliance requirements in our debt agreements.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Again, thank you for coming out and giving us an update.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it. Okay, we'll move on to item 9A is consent agenda. I'll open up the consent agenda for council to pull any items, or if we do not have any items to pull, I need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Costin?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda is 9B, appointments to boards and committees. B1 is Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. Madam City Clerk.
Yes, today we are looking at the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. There are 3 vacancies. We have received 2 applications for current members seeking reappointment. Both are here in the audience if you had any questions, if you wanted to interview them.
Well, we have, 3 vacancies and 2 applicants?
Yes, sir.
Does council have a desire really to do any interviews, or do we have a motion on the floor?
Motion to appoint the 2 applicants.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Costin?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd?
Aye.
Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, we'll move on to item 9C, unfinished business. C1 is follow-up items for council. We don't have anything listed. Does council have any follow-up items? Seeing none, 9C2, we've moved that, so that particular item's been heard. We'll move on to 9E, personnel actions. City manager's discussion.
Which one?
I'm the one that added this to the agenda, simply to have a discussion. I know we had originally had stated that we wanted the city manager to get through the budget cycle before we made any type of determination. The reason I added it to the agenda was if we feel that we are going to advertise that position publicly, then we may want to have a discussion on getting bids from firms to see how much that's going to cost. So I think that was the initial reason that I had put this particular agenda item on there, is for council to decide if that's the direction we want to go in. If so, then we would have to get some dollar amounts from firms on what that cost would be, something very similar to the city attorney's position that we just used an outside agency to do a search for us. I know we had talked about sometime in September. We're in the middle of July now, so I think if that's the direction that we are going to go in, then that's, maybe something, if this council collectively wants to go in that direction, something we should probably start contemplating. So that's why I brought the discussion up. With that, I'll open up the council for discussion. Councilmember Steinke.
I'd like to make a motion that we do not initiate a search for city manager at this time.
I second it.
Okay. Any other discussion, Councilmember Steinke, on that particular topic? No. And Councilmember Cummings.
I was going to make a motion just to go and vote to make him permanent city manager.
Well, we already have one motion and a
I know, that's
second
what I
on the
say,
floor.
that's why it's like we're on the same page.
We can open the discussion up.
Yeah.
If that's the direction we want to go in, but we do have a motion and a second not to look outside at this point in time. I believe is what Councilmember Steinke's motion was. But, with that being said, we're open for discussion. So is there anything else, any other discussion from you, or I'll move on to the next?
Yeah, I think that he has proven himself over the time. He's very well respected in our community. He's pretty much was raised in Cape Coral, raised in his family here, and the time that I have spent with him, he has educated me on items that I was not very familiar with. He would take time and explain it to me, and anything that was needed from residents that would contact me, he was on it instantly. Just watching him help us save money, helping us keep the tax dollars lowered, bringing things forth that many of us has promised in our campaign trail, helping it happen is huge. The short period of time that I've been working with him to seeing how much has been done, it's, to me, a big wow factor. Because I know I was told by somebody that said government can take a very long time. That's not true. Depends on who you bring in the seat. And he has proven that he gets the work done. And I'm all about action, not about someone just talking the talk. So I'm for Mike Ilchism being our city manager here in Cape Coral. Thank you.
Councilmember Hayden.
I support the motion that's on the floor right now to not initiate a search. I believe Mr. Ilchism's on a course, and we talked about this on Monday, to be our next city manager. I want to see how he handles the most important thing we do every year, and that's adopt a budget. This will be a complicated budget that we go through. If he validates that performance the way he's proven himself through every other step that he's made and every other decision he's made over the last 6 months, then I will fully endorse him as our next city manager. But I want to see him, as we talked about earlier, see him through this budget cycle and how he handles himself, how he handles the issues, how he handles the community concerns. And I'm pretty confident that he's going to get through that well, not without, I'm sure, a lot of debate and interesting discussion. But he's on the course that I thought he would be on to be our next city manager, but I certainly support the motion that's on the floor now.
Councilmember Long.
Yeah, so I guess twofold. One of them was to kind of clarify the motion, because the two motions that were made, obviously the one is live here, was to not move forward. And then the next one was, which of course is not up for discussion at this point, was to appoint him as the city manager. So I want to make sure that those two things are mutually exclusive. If we move
on
forward.
the table now is
The motion on the
Councilmember
table now is not necessarily to implement him in the position as the permanent city manager. It is only to defer to the point that we had already set. And so to that point, I think I was a little surprised, but I'm going to say that I agree with Mr. Hayden. I don't get to say that often, but that was him and I had to give it to him. But no, that was almost certainly what I was going to say. I think that the timeline was contemplated in the original discussion that we had with regards to initiating that in September. I do agree with everything that's been said about Mr. Chisholm. He's been exceptional in the role so far, but Mr. Hayden took away one of my points, which was that the reason we made that decision is because one of the most important things we do here in this city is the budget, and a lot of the issues that we had with the former city manager revolved primarily around how he handled that budget. So I would agree that we would continue forward with the date that we had previously set and told the public that we would set, and that's how I would suggest that we move forward. Thank you.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes, I have all the confidence in the world for Mike. I've watched Mike for almost 20 years. I don't think he needs to prove himself anymore. He has a skill set that was needed in this city when it comes to building relationships. That is very important. I've seen our city fail over the years in leadership when it comes to relationships, whether it be with our neighbors, whether it be with the relationship between city government and the citizens of the city. And I think Mike has a skill set that is an extreme asset to our city. And I think we've all witnessed it. It's been a breath of fresh air. But his knowledge of the city is something that you're not going to get from any applicant. And his heart and his passion about our city. I mean, his accomplishment of being one of the people that activated the water for the hospital when there was minutes left after the hurricane was something that may have not been accomplished without Mike. So that just shows the passion, the dedication, the respect he has from the people that he works with, and the respect that he gives them as well, and his relationship building that's going to help the city in the future. Thank you.
Councilmember Welsh?
Thank you. I'm not going to echo what Councilmember Hayden and Councilmember Long said. So as far as the motion on the table to not initiate a search at this time, I think that's going to save the city some money. And I would support that motion, but as far as sticking to what we already came up with by getting through the budget cycle, I would prefer to do that. I don't think we're going to lose Mike in 2 months. He's been here over 20 years, so taking our time and doing it right and making sure we get through the budget is, I think, what we all agreed upon. So I don't see a reason to change that now. Thank you.
Okay. I agree. I think that Mr. Earl Chisholm's done an excellent job the last 4 months and however many days it is. No doubt in my mind that here in the next 2 months, 2.5 months, he'll do the same. Probably for me, I think we have a great candidate in him for city manager, and I think he'll make a great permanent city manager. Doesn't really matter if we make him today or in September. I think the result's going to be the same. So just keep doing what you're doing. With that being said, I don't see any other discussion. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Madam City Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Costin?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, item 10 is ordinance resolutions. 10A is quasi-judicial hearings. We have Resolution 147-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Resolution 147-23, a resolution providing for the vacation of plat for an alley and the underlying easements located between lots 1 through 11 and Tract A, Block 2022, Cape Coral, Unit 31. Providing for the vacation of plat for platted easements lying in lots 1 through 11, Block 2022, Cape Coral, Unit 31. Providing for the vacation of plat for platted easements lying in Tract A, Block 2022, Cape Coral, Unit 31. Property located in the northwest corner of the intersection of Northeast Pine Island Road and Northeast 13th Avenue, providing an effective date.
This is a quasi judicial hearing. Anyone wishing to speak or provide testimony must be sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Strube.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. For the record, Mike Strube, Planning Team Coordinator with the Planning Division. My credentials are on file with the City Clerk's Office. This case involves a privately initiated vacation request. The owner of these sites is the Shops at Del Sol LLC. They're represented by TDM Consulting. And the owner is requesting to vacate platted city alley right-of-way and all underlying easements for an alley located in Block 2022. The owner is also requesting to vacate platted easements on his site located in lots 1 through 11 and Track A, all within Block 2022. These properties are located a little less than half a mile west of the intersection of Del Prado and Pine Island Road. This is an aerial map showing the applicant's or the owner's properties outlined in red. You'll also notice that there is another property with a dashed line around it. That is not one of the subject properties involved in this particular application, but it is owned by the petitioner or the owner in this vacation request, and collectively all of those properties amount to about 7.5 acres of land. You'll notice here that the alley proposed to be vacated is rather centrally located on the owner's site. If you look at surrounding land uses, they consist mostly of vacant land, some scattered commercial and residential development north of Pine Island Road, and then at least within 500 feet of the subject property, exclusively non-residential development south of Pine Island Road. The subject property has a Pine Island Road District Future Land Use Classification and Commercial Corridor zoning, as do all properties within 500 feet of the subject properties. In total, the petitioner owns 12 sites that total about 7.5 acres. A 20-foot wide platted alley that is unimproved separates 8 sites owned by the petitioner on the north side of the alley from an additional 4 sites owned by the petitioner on the south side of the alley. Easements underlying the alley, as well as platted easements on the north and the south sides of the alley, are requested to be vacated. Staff has analyzed this request consistent with section 3.4.5, which is found in the Land Development Code, which includes standards for vacation requests. What you see on the screen before you is a summary of our staff analysis. A more robust analysis is provided in our staff report. The alley is currently unimproved, so it is not used by traffic. It's not used by service vehicles as well. All of the sites abutting the alley have frontage along local streets, and for that reason, staff does not believe the alley is currently necessary, and in fact, it can't be used unless it is paved. And in addition to that, staff does not envision a foreseeable need for the alley in the future. Easements underlying the alley and the platted easements are not needed, and the reason for this is because the city will retain 6-foot wide easements at the ends of the alley that will be used to provide for a continuous perimeter easement around this assembly. As a condition of approval, the owner will provide an easement to protect an existing LCEC distribution pole that is near the southeast corner of the alley. And staff looked at this request for consistency with the city's comprehensive plan, and we did find that this request is consistent with policy 3.6 of the future land use element, which states the city may consider the vacation of rights-of-way to facilitate land assembly and the development of a unified contiguous commercial project. Staff recommends approval of this vacation request with conditions that appear in the resolution before you. We have had no correspondence concerning this case. The hearing examiner did consider this case and recommended approval. Following a hearing on this matter in May, there were no speakers during public input, and I'll stand by in case you have questions for me.
Thank you. Now, public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on Resolution 147-23, please come forward. Have you been sworn in, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Veronica Martin. I'm senior planner with TDM Consulting. I'm here this evening representing the applicant, Miguel Ludlinski, for the Shops at Del Sol, LLC. During the hearing examiner's public hearing, Mike and I determined that our presentations were almost identical, so I am not going to duplicate Mike's presentation. He did an excellent job. I do want to go over just a couple of the key points. The applicant does intend to develop this site 7.5 acres for commercial development, hence the name Shops at Del Sol, LLC. The property is vacant at this time. We have demonstrated compliance with the comprehensive plan and have met the criteria for the vacation of alley and the vacation of the internal easements. We are in agreement with the condition to provide an easement for LCEC, and they, are in agreement with that proposed sketch and legal for that easement. I don't have much more to add to Mike's presentation, but I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for this particular individual? Okay, thank you, ma'am. Is there a motion for Resolution 147-23?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Madam City Clerk.
I just wanted to remind you to please close
Close.
the
I'm sorry.
hearing. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak on this particular public hearing for Resolution 147-23? Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. I just have a quick question. Mr. Struve, if we could go back to the map. I think it said zoning or something at the top, but it gave right there. That's fine. That alleyway looks like it goes between Northeast 13th Avenue and Northeast 12th Court.
12th Court. Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming all of those parcels, they're owned by the same individual?
They are. All the parcels located and abutting the alley to the north and to the south are owned by the same entity.
Okay.
Which is the petitioner in this case.
And the other question is, you have the two larger parcels in the front. Will there be any access allowed from Northeast Pine Island Road to these parcels? Is that allowed? I know it would probably depend upon whatever the site plan was, but will that be allowed? Is there a restriction because of the?
Not necessarily a restriction. It would depend in part on how this property is developed. So for example, if you look to the west of these properties that are outlined in red and include that larger parcel that has frontage both on Pine Island Road and Northeast 10th Place, if all of those sites were developed together, that would certainly increase the likelihood that access might be granted from Pine Island Road by the state, just because of the length of frontage involved. But in addition to that, even if access was not granted, and that would be a permit that would need to be approved by the state, the applicant would have access, at least from a couple local streets that do connect to Pine Island Road, both 13th Avenue and Northeast 10th Place.
So
it remains to be determined.
Right. So the state would have to approve that on Northeast Pine Island Road, but there's no restriction at this point. And there still looks to be at least 3 other local roads that could possibly have access to this larger parcel if it was combined.
Yeah, at least 3. It looks like there would be
Right.
at least 4,
Right.
I think, yes, that would have access to the site.
Yep. All right, that's all the questions I have. Thank you. Councilmember Long.
Thank you, Long. Mr. Struve, I understand it's not pertinent to the request before us, but just general curiosity. Has the applicant indicated at all what some of the proposed uses might be on this site?
They have not formally submitted a site plan at this time, but back in January, we did have a pre-application meeting, and at that time, I believe there was a proposal to include a restaurant on the site as well as some general retail uses, and I think the amount of square footage was somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 to 80,000 square feet of non-residential uses.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I understand they're not tied to that, but I appreciate it. Just curious. Thank you.
And I think for me personally, you know, when you look at this particular site, vacating this particular alleyway, I don't think will be that much of an impact as far as traffic flow. There's 4 other roadways that you could have access to this particular site. So with that being said, I'll be in favor of the motion. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Costin?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Venter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, we'll move on to Resolution 148-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Resolution 148-23, a resolution providing for the vacation of plat for a portion of the Del Rio Court right-of-way and all underlying easements located adjacent to lots 11 through 13, Block 19, Cape Coral, Unit 1, Part 2, providing for the vacation of plat for platted easements lying in Lot 11, Block 19, Cape Coral, Unit 1, Part 2, providing for the vacation of plat for platted easements lying in lots 12 and 13, Block 19, Cape Coral, Unit 1, Part 2, property located at 5620 and 5624 Del Rio Court, providing an effective date.
This is also a quasi-judicial hearing. Anyone wishing to speak or provide testimony must be sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. For the record, Candace Ford, Associate Planner with the City Planning Division. I will be reviewing the case with you for Resolution 148-23. This was a joint application to vacate right-of-way. The owners are going to be 5624 Del Rio Court LLC and Isard Properties LLC. The applicants specifically are requesting to vacate 2,363 square feet of Del Rio Court right-of-way and all underlying easements adjacent to Lot 11, 12, and 13. The second vacation request is going to be for 465 square feet of platted easements lying specifically in Lot 11, and then an additional 459 square feet of platted easements are proposed to be vacated in Lots 12 and 13. You can see the location of the 2 parcels on the screen, and then a location within the city on the right side of the screen, the left side, I'm sorry, of the screen there. Most of the parcels within 500 feet and in that residential area are going to be R1 zoning, so single-family residential uses all the way through. A little bit of background on the site. Both sites are between 13,000 square feet and then 16,560 square feet. And again, they are in a predominantly residential area of the city that's currently mostly built out. The sites do abut the Del Rio Canal, which has a platted width of roughly 80 feet. And each owner of each site did receive a demolition permit within the last year. The intent is to demo the houses that are currently there and then rebuild slightly bigger. Based on criteria in LDC section 3.4.5, I'm going to review a summary of them. They do meet the criteria as mentioned in the staff report, where we're just going to do a summary. The right-of-way is currently at the end of Del Rio Court, and it constitutes a dead end between the 2 petitioners' sites. The right-of-way currently only provides access to one of the properties. That would be the 5624 address, and it's not needed necessarily for vehicular access at this time. It will be noted that the right-of-way will be divided between the 2 petitioners' sites somewhat asymmetrically. Standard 2 is part of the easements underlying the canal right-of-way will be retained. and the easements will be sufficient for providing a continuous perimeter easement around the sites. All three utility providers were contacted, and they did provide no objection letters regarding the request. LCEC does require a continuous easement be provided around the perimeter, which the applicants have agreed upon. One of the conditions is there is a drain pipe currently in Lot 11 that conveys stormwater to the Del Rio Canal. This will be extended into the city's new right-of-way following the vacation, and then a new inlet will be constructed. The city will require easements from the owner of Lot 11 to protect the infrastructure, and that is a condition in the staff report that they've agreed upon. City planning staff recommends approval with conditions for the vacation, and then the hearing examiner also recommends approval with conditions for the vacation request. The hearing was May 2nd. Prior to HEX and council, I received 2 inquiries regarding the request, but neither resident gave a for or against. They were just merely curious. So here is a snippet of the sketches for the vacation request specifically. Exhibit A on the left shows the 2,363 square feet proposing to be vacated. The Exhibit B on the right shows the 465 square feet proposing to be vacated. And then the last one shows Exhibit C, which is going to be 459 square feet proposing to be vacated at platted easements. And I will stand by with any questions you might have.
Thank you. I'll now open public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 148-23? Please come forward. Seeing none, public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve resolution 148-23?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any council discussion? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Costin?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Item 10B is legislative public hearings. We'll move on to resolution 174-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Resolution 174-23, a resolution adopting the 2023 through 2024 one-year action plan for the Community Development Block Grant Entitlement Program, authorizing and directing the city manager to prepare and submit the one-year action plan for the 2023 through 2024 fiscal year to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, authorizing the city manager or his designee to accept and execute the grant agreement for the 2023-2024 CDBG program when received from HUD, authorizing the city manager or his designee to accept and execute grant agreements with subrecipients, providing an effective date.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to staff.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. For the record, Amy Yearsley, Planning Manager. Resolution 174-23 really does 4 things today. It adopts our 2023-24 one-year CDBG action plan, which delineates how our CDBG funds are going to be spent in the upcoming year, and it includes recommendations from our Citizens Advisory Board for the CDBG program. It also authorizes and directs the city manager to submit the plan and sign the grant agreements when they come in from HUD, and it directs the city manager to execute subrecipient agreements with the partner agencies and departments included within the plan. A little snapshot of our program year allocation from 2023-2024, a little over $1 million. This represents a slight increase, but generally a kind of flat funding for the most part that we see every year. It is anticipated, as required by the regulations, that 100% of the funds will be utilized to benefit low moderate income persons within our city. And we received 10 applications during our grant cycle, requesting a little over $700,000. Just a reminder on kind of our statutory requirements. They exist for these funds. 15% go to public services, 20% to administration, and 65% for public facilities, housing, and economic development. Public services is where we generally have the most amount of interest from applicants. So here are the recommendations for the public service from the Citizens Advisory Board. Many of these people are funded annually. We have abuse counseling and treatment, Cape Coral Caring Center, child care services run by our Parks and Rec Department, some senior services, and some handicap services. With regards to our housing economic development section, we had 2 applicants, and the recommended funding levels are included here. We did not receive any public facilities requests this year. So our action plan timeline, our 30-day public comment period ended today as part of this hearing. Any sort of public comments that we received will be included into our final submission to HUD. We tentatively submit August 11th. It'll probably be prior to that. And once our approval is received from HUD, agreements will be executed with subrecipients retroactive to October 1. Generally, we don't receive our approval till around December. So with that, I'm available for any questions.
Councilmember first, before we get to that, I'll now open up public input. Anyone wishing to speak on Resolution 174-23, please come forward. Seeing none, public input is now closed. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 174-23?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Councilmember Hayden.
Amy, we know how important this money is to the many nonprofits that apply for it every year and the people that, thousands of people that they serve. I'm going to take my question in a different direction, still related to HUD.
Okay.
But any updates on the CDBG-DR plan as the county moves forward with building that plan?
The county is working on their plan actively, and they're coming up on their first big deadline. It is anticipated the month of August is going to be their public comment period. So just like we're doing, they're going to have their 30-day public comment period during the month of August. We anticipate, actually, they were anticipated doing 4 workshops. They've added additional one that is going to be located here in the city, so our residents can come out and speak regarding the CDBG-DR funds.
Are we having regular communication with them as they move forward in case they might have questions, or how's that dialogue going?
Our dialogue has been excellent with the county. We recently were at our collaboration meeting where they pull in other municipalities. We sit down, we talk with them, and so we kind of have an open dialogue.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion second on the floor. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Cosden?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Gunter?
Aye.
Hayden?
Aye.
Long?
Aye.
Shepherd? Steinke?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
8 ayes, motion carried.
Move on to item 10C is introductions, Resolution 157-23. Madam City Clerk, please read title, set the public hearing date.
Resolution 157-23, a resolution providing for the vacation of plat for an alley and the underlying easements located between lots 1 through 8 and lots 65 through 72, Block 4127, Cape Coral, Unit 59. Providing for the vacation of plat for platted public utility and drainage easements adjacent to the platted alley lying in lots 1 through 8 and lots 65 through 72, Block 4127, Cape Coral, Unit 59. Property located at 6 Burnt Store Road North, 16 Burnt Store Road North, 5 Northwest 32nd Place, and 13 Northwest 32nd Place, providing an effective date. The public hearing will be July 26, 2023.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to Resolution 158-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title, set the public hearing date.
Resolution 158-23, a resolution providing for the vacation of plat for a portion of the Southwest 3rd Avenue right-of-way located adjacent to lots 41 through 43, Block 188, Cape Coral, Unit 3. Providing for the vacation of plat for platted easements lying in lots 41 and 42, Block 188, Cape Coral, Unit 3. Providing for the vacation of plat for platted easements lying in Lot 43, Block 188, Cape Coral, Unit 3. Property located at 5414 and 5418 Southwest 3rd Avenue, providing an effective date. The public hearing will be July 26, 2023.
Is there any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we're going to move on to Resolution 158-23.
Your Honor.
Madam City, did I skip one?
171.
171.
I'm sorry, Resolution 171-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title.
Resolution 171-23, a resolution providing for the vacation of plat for a portion of the El Dorado Parkway West right-of-way and all underlying easements located adjacent to lots 48 through 51, Block 190, Cape Coral, Unit 3, providing for the vacation of plat for platted easements lying in lots 49 through 50, Block 190, Cape Coral, Unit 3, property located at 113 and 117 El Dorado Parkway West, providing an effective date. The public hearing will be August 2nd, 2023.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 39-23. Madam City Clerk, please read title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 39-23, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 6, Pensions, Division 1, Police Pension, amending Section 2-121.1, Definitions, amending Section 2-121.4, Finances and Fund Management, Establishment and Operation of Fund, amending Section 2-121.7, Death Benefits, amending Section 2-121.10, Optional Forms of Benefits, amending Section 2-121.16, Minimum Distribution of Benefits, amending Section 2-121.30, Supplemental Benefit Component for Special Benefits, Chapter 185, Share Accounts, providing for severability of provisions, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. The public hearing will be July 26, 2023.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 45-23. Madam City Clerk, please read title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 45-23, an ordinance amending Ordinance 71-03 as amended by Ordinance 141-04 and Ordinance 6-15, approving a planned development project in the City of Cape Coral, Florida entitled Sunset Lakes, also known as Coral Lake Subdivision, for certain property described as a tract or parcel of land situated in the state of Florida, County of Lee, City of Cape Coral, lying in Section 30, Township 43 South, Range 24 East, and being more particularly described as the platted subdivision of Coral Lakes. Recorded in Plat Book 80 at pages 12 through 28 of the Public Records of Lee County, Florida, and specifically amending the Sunset Lakes Plan Development Project for two properties identified as Tract C-2 and Tract A-7 as depicted in the platted subdivision of Coral Lakes, recorded in Plat Book 80 at page 13 of the Public Records of Lee County, Florida. By approving the modification of conditions in Ordinance 71-03 to remove any obligations to install a traffic signal at the intersection of Del Prado Boulevard and the north entrance to Sunset Lakes, to remove traffic monitoring requirements, to remove any obligation to install a roadway connection between the subject properties and the Sunset Lakes development, to allow development of the applicant's property consistent with the industrial zoning district as further provided, providing for findings of fact and conclusions of law, providing for action on request and conditions of approval, providing for legal effect and limitations of this PDP development order and administrative requirements, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be July 26, 2023.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 47-23. Madam City Clerk, please read title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 47-23, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral Land Development Code, Article 5, Development Standards, Chapter 2, Accessory Structures, Section 5.2.7, Fences and Walls, regarding concrete fences and walls located in a public utility or drainage easement, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be July 26, 2023.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 50-23. Madam City Clerk, please read title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 50-23, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral Comprehensive Plan by amending the future land use map from multifamily residential to commercial/professional land use for property described as lots 25 through 60, block 2219, lots 17 through 40, block 2221, lots 1 through 66, Block 2220, and lots 1 through 68, Block 2211, all located in Unit 33, Cape Coral subdivision. Property located at 1902 through 2098 Diplomat Parkway East, 2101 through 2219 Diplomat Parkway East, 2102 through 2354 Diplomat Parkway East, and 2305 through 2351 Diplomat Parkway East, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be July 26, 2023.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 5123. Madam City Clerk, please read title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 51-23, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral Comprehensive Plan by amending the future land use map from mixed use to multifamily residential land use for property described as a tract or parcel of land situated in the state of Florida, County of Lee, City of Cape Coral, lying in the northeast quarter of Section 21, Township 43 South, Range 24 East, as more particularly described herein. Property located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Del Prado Boulevard and De Navarra Parkway, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be July 26, 2023.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 53-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 53-23, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral official zoning district map of all property within the limits of the City of Cape Coral by rezoning property described as parcels of land lying in the northwest one quarter of Section 20, Township 44 South, Range 23 East, Lee County, Florida, as more particularly described herein, from agricultural, a Lee County designation, to commercial corridor zone. Property is located at 2810 through 3000 Southwest Pine Island Road, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be July 26, 2023.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 53-23. Madam City Clerk, please read title, set the public hearing date.
Your Honor, this one is 55-23.
I have 51-23. We just did that, correct?
I just did 53.
You just did 53?
Yes, sir.
So we're at ordinance 55-23?
Yes, sir.
All right. Madam City Clerk, please read the title on ordinance 55-23 and set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 55-23, an ordinance providing for the annexation of a parcel of land lying in Section 4, Township 44 South, Range 24 East, Lee County, Florida, as more particularly described herein, providing for redefinition of city boundaries, providing for City of Cape Coral Fire Department and utility services, providing for severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be August 2nd, 2023.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 57-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 57-23, an ordinance amending the City of Cape Coral official zoning district map of all property within the limits of the City of Cape Coral by rezoning property described as lots 5 through 20, Block 2175, Cape Coral Subdivision, Unit 32, from commercial to industrial zone. Property is located at 809 through 907 Kismet Parkway East, providing severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be August 2nd, 2023.
Any discussion by staff or council? Seeing none, we'll move on to ordinance 59-23. Madam City Clerk, please read the title, set the public hearing date.
Ordinance 59-23, an ordinance approving a deed of transfer of slip credits to an identified qualifying receiving parcel from the City of Cape Coral, a Florida municipal corporation, to Scarlet Investments, LLC, a Florida limited liability company. Approving the deed of conservation easement and covenant limiting watercraft slips between the City of Cape Coral, a Florida municipal corporation, and Lee County, a political subdivision of the state of Florida. Authorizing the mayor to execute the deed of transfer of slip credits to an identified qualifying receiving parcel and the deed of conservation easement and covenant limiting watercraft slips. Receiving parcel located at 458 Tudor Drive, providing for severability and an effective date. The public hearing will be July 26, 2023.
Any discussion by staff or council? Okay, seeing none, before we move on to item 11, reports, Councilmember Cosden, you wanted to have a discussion earlier. I'll turn the floor back over to you.
Thank you. I really just wanted to know if anyone else is even interested in looking into moving the building. It sounded silly to me in the beginning, but if it can really happen, then both sides win. And I hate to say win because it's not a competition, but both sides get what they want. So.
What I will tell you, I had a meeting yesterday with Ms. Tate. And in our discussion, she had stated it was pretty evident that council, didn't appear that council at this time was interested in trying to save the building at the existing location. And she wanted to possibly entertain trying to relocate the building. And my discussion with her was, first off, and I believe she had a discussion with the city manager as well, prior to me. And her discussion was that she would like to try to relocate the building over to Culture Park. And my discussion with her was truly what the dollar amount would cost in order to do that. And I told her, in my professional opinion, being in the construction industry for the last 36 years, that's going to be much more expensive than demolition.
How expensive?
So when I had made that statement to her, she had told me that she had already reached out to a firm in Fort Myers to try to get an approximate value of what that would cost. And as she had stated apparently tonight, she is meeting a representative from that firm tomorrow to maybe try to get what that cost may be. I told her I think that she would probably need to bring that information back to council before we could even entertain that discussion. And I think the example that I gave her is if it's going to cost $8 to $10 million to relocate the building, but it's only going to cost 1.5 to tear it down, say, to me it's all about economics. But she said that she didn't know exactly what that cost was going to be. Then secondly, we had a discussion, who's going to pay for the relocation? And she had went on to state that she was going to try to get some type of donations from within the community and try to do some fundraising. And I told her, I gave her the example of the animal shelter. And I know it took them between 3 and 4 years at least to raise the money to build the animal shelter. And I told her the last thing that I could support personally was waiting for an unspecified amount of time for their nonprofit organization, the museum, to try to raise the money, and then have the whole project just sit there. I wasn't in support of that. So I think the first step that she was trying to do is maybe meet with someone and try to get an approximate cost of what it would be to relocate the building. And that's pretty much how our conversation ended yesterday. I think she was trying to get that number, come back, and, you know, for me, that's the big variable, what that dollar amount's going to be. I don't want to hold the project up. I don't think it, in my opinion, if it's $3 to $5 million, say, to move the building, or $10 million, I don't know. Didn't sound like they had a plan in place to be able to get that type of monies in a short period of time. But, you know, we'll see. She's, you know, as we all know, she's been very diligent in her efforts, to say the least. And I know she's trying to explore all opportunities. In closing, I told her I would keep an open mind, but for me, I didn't want to extend the project any longer than it needed to be, and it was all about the economics, about what it would cost to move the building. Now, sure, the win-win situation would be they had $5 million sitting in the bank, or at least donated, and it was going to cost less than that to move it, then they could move it and put it where they wish. Sure, that's a win-win. I don't think that's where we're at, but I told her I'd keep an open mind and let her do the due diligence that she was looking to do, and she said she'd get that information back to me. So that's all I can tell you as far as our discussion yesterday on this topic.
That satisfies my need for information, and I'm good holding off until we have info from her. Thank you.
Councilmember Welsh.
Thank you. I was going to share the same sentiment as Councilwoman Cosden. If there's a way that we can get a win-win out of this and not cost a lot to taxpayers, if she can raise the money, or if there's people within the community that want to pay to move it, I think it's something that we could entertain. But as you said, I don't want to delay the yacht club any longer either. So I wish Gloria the best of luck in everything she's trying to do there. So like I said, I agree with what you said, and I'll wait to see what they say. Thank you.
Council members, thank you.
Thank you. From my experience with moving buildings, it would seem that that building would probably have to be moved in pieces, not part and parcel. And we've spoken before about in the demolition that it'd be more of a surgical demolition where we would be able to retain certain things for memorabilia and for placement in the museum, or in the new building that would be constructed to have some type of a memorial area in the building itself. I'd like to just get an update maybe with where we are on the advisory group that we were looking at to determine what pieces of the building we would be wanting to save, and because that has to play into the bid process for the demolition of the building and the parts that we do want to keep. Do we have any progress on the advisory group or the determination of what we want to save?
Thanks, council members. Thank you. Bill, do you have that information? I know Paul's out. Do you know where he was at with setting up the timeline for the demolition and the group? Paul's out on vacation. It sounds like Bill doesn't have the information readily available. I will provide that as soon as I get it. One of the things I did ask him was to put together a timeline on the contract for writing the demolition, as well as when the group would be pulled in to identify what items would be salvaged, if we're going to salvage any, and work on that. So I have not received that to date.
Okay.
But he knows it's an outstanding request.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussions on that topic? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item 11 in the report. As far as reports, Councilmember Shepherd, report.
Went to the 4th of July event. Staff did a great job. The fireworks were awesome. I think they did a really good job putting that together, and I want to thank all the volunteers and all the people that helped out, dedicating the time to make it successful. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, Councilmember Steinke, report.
Thank you. Just obviously we did a number of things during hiatus, but I'm glad to be back at it full time. We've got a lot going on, and just happy to be here.
Councilmember Welsh.
Yes. Couple of things. We have a meeting on August 23rd. It's a CAL meeting. I'd like to request either to be absent at that meeting or potentially remote in with Zoom. And also I'm going to be absent at a regular meeting, which is going to be September 20th. That one I don't believe we'll be able to remote in. So just those two things. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Cosden.
Thank you. Yeah, I do have one thing to bring up. We had a member of the youth council resign last month, and we need to figure out what to do. There's two options, but I think my idea is to pull one from the 3 applicants that were remaining during the last round. The other option would be to go out to the schools and ask for applications, but school isn't even in session right now. It won't be for a month. Guidance counselors are busy this time of year. So I think that we should in a future meeting, select from the 3 remaining applicants. At least 2 of them are interested and are still interested. So I guess it's up to us to decide. Are we all good with that method?
I mean, I'm good with that. I guess the city clerk would have to reach out to the 3 applicants and see if they're interested.
Not the city clerk, it would be our office now that we
Your-
are no
oh, that's
longer
right.
yeah.
Exactly.
So Connie and I will be.
Okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, Councilman, I don't have any problem with that. If you recall the meeting I was at, a student from Mariner had actually come in to talk to me about something else, and I brought her up to the youth council meeting because the person that resigned was from Mariner, and she'd be an incoming senior as well. I'd like to reach out to her and again just see if she's interested. If not, then it could be the same 3 or her added as a 4th.
So do you want to just let Connie know?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I don't think we need to vote on that. And then just another thing real quick. National League of Cities is November. It's in Atlanta, and I want to plan my travel. So with no objection, I will plan on going. Thank you.
Good. All right, we'll move on to Councilmember Cummings' report.
Yeah, I would like to talk to you. I received some concerning news recently about Parks and Recs with our camps and our children. And I had a couple come in and talk with me and wanted to know what actions were taken. And I shared with them, I would bring it up, and to see if you can basically help by sharing what has taken place at this time. Michael.
Thank you, Councilmember Cummings. I presume the item you're discussing is related to an incident that happened at Oasis
The
North?
children, yes.
Okay. That item is still an open investigation. I have the Parks and Rec Director, who is at the lead of that investigation. Under our city code, the city manager's office does not levy discipline. So department heads are over their respective departments and programs and agencies. When an item comes before myself or you all or through their staff, the department head is the one who is responsible for investigating, fact-finding, and determining if there was any violation of policy or violation of law. At that time, the department head, in conjunction with HR, would determine whether or not to issue discipline, including an up-to termination. And at that point, if the affected individual on the other end of that seeks to appeal, then it would come to my office. So as of this time, I have nothing before me. Joe is doing his work, and I have met with him a couple of times to make sure that certain elements are reviewed, both from legal aspects as well as city policy. We have conferred with the city's legal department, specifically the assistant city attorney that deals with personnel matters, and I have all the confidence based on what I'm aware of that Joe is doing what needs to be done at the same time of protecting the students, the children. Joe has an obligation, as well as I do, to protect the organization as well. And so that's what we're doing. I would like to remind all of council that when I deal with personnel matters, I do not and will not share all of those as we share information regarding other elements. So that is the one exception that I spoke to you all about when you asked me to be interim. And so if you have individual questions, I'd be willing to discuss them with you one-on-one.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mike. And also, the big concern that they had when they had spoke with me is, are we putting policies and procedures in immediately to make sure this does not continue on?
I can tell you that there are several policy issues that the Parks Director has identified, and he has several of them that are going into effect. And I'm, again, confident that he will take care of this at the administrative level, and it will not rise to you all needing to step in.
Okay, thank you.
That it?
That's all, thanks.
Okay, Councilmember Hayden.
No report.
Councilmember Long.
No report.
Okay, I'll try to be fairly brief. June 16th, along with many of you, I attended MPO meeting. On the June 20th, attended Hurricane Ian Recovery Executive Committee meeting. On the 21st, I was a guest speaker at Florida Association of Code Enforcement Conference at the Westin. Also, on 6/22, I was a guest speaker at the Slipaway Food Truck Marina groundbreaking celebration. I believe Councilmember Long attended that as well. 6/23, attended the Lee County Recovery Task Force meeting. 6/24, attended the Rotary meeting at the Westin for the swearing in of the new officers. And on the June 26th, attended the CDBG DR Action Plan Review meeting. Attended the Red, White, and Boom on July 4th. Just want to commend the staff for another great year, putting that particular event on. You know, I know most people don't realize, but they're out there at daybreak to get that event set up and be ready for all of us to go and enjoy in our community. So just want to thank them for all their hard efforts, just like each and every year. On July 10th, also attended the Hurricane Ian recovery meeting with the city manager, Senator Martin, Representative Mike Gilobardo, and our fire chief, who is heading that particular initiative. Also on July 10th, participated in a video shoot for the Lee County District of Importance of Road Safety. Apparently they've asked mayors throughout Lee County to participate in providing a video that will be dispersed here in Lee County. July 11th, I attended the Hurricane Ian Recovery Executive Committee meeting. And also today I attended the Southwest Florida League of Cities Executive Committee meeting. So that was my hiatus. So back to work today. Mr. Deputy City Attorney, report.
I'll be shorter. No report.
Mr. City Manager, report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of items. But first, I would like to thank you all for the public recognition of the last 4 months of my work, and not moving forward with an external advertisement. I'm confident that you will see at the end of this budget process that what you've gotten in the first 4 months is exactly what you're going to get over the next 2 months. This will not be my first budget that I've prepared, nor will it be my last. So we will work together, and come the time when we need to submit a balanced budget to the state, I'm confident we will. But thank you for the recognition earlier, and not seeking an external candidate. So a couple upcoming items that I'd like to announce before the next meeting. Coral Oaks is having a golf family month. The PGA of America recognized the month of July as Family Golf Month, and the Coral Oaks Golf Course is proud to support those initiatives by offering discounts between July 1st and 31st. Children under the age of 17 can receive a free bucket of range balls when an accompanying adult purchases a bucket of range balls, and 2 adults and 2 kids can play for $60 in the afternoons. For more information about the PGA Family Golf Month specials, please contact Coral Oaks Golf Course. The city was the subject of a potential scam that was put forward by someone on Facebook claiming to hold a fake City Hall event to become a vendor. It was slated or announced to be held between July 29th and 30th at City Hall, and the scammers were requesting payment of potential vendors to submit payments to them via PayPal. I just would like to let every vendor and everybody in the city know that we are not hosting, nor has there been a request to host any type of vendor event, nor when we do this or would we collect fees from potential vendors to attend any city event. So I just wanted to put that out there. And then lastly, I was going to discuss this earlier, but Councilwoman Cosden brought up the issue at the yacht club. So I still would like to ask, just because I think it's clear to the direction the council gave is let them see what they can do to come up with a cost and time. I have one question that I think I still need as administration is if they need to get in the building, are you all inclined to having us allow them to sign a waiver of liability or some type of release to get that? So are you at least interested in trying to facilitate them getting the information they need to see if it's even possible?
Yeah, when I spoke with Ms. Tate, she had stated, actually, I think also today, she reiterated it at the podium that they didn't need to have access at this point. That was my understanding. My guess is the individual will probably come down, see the size of the building and how tall it is. And like someone had mentioned, definitely if it's going to be moved, it's going to be dismantled.
Sure.
We're not going to be able to save the slab, probably not the foundation. So it's just not moving the building, the cost of that. There's going to be cost on the other end. Putting it back together, putting the footers in, pouring a new slab. So this is going to be quite the endeavor. But, you know, we'll wait to hear back from her. I think she's trying to get some, for me anyway, she's trying to get some approximate numbers. So I think for me personally, not speaking for the whole council, but for me personally, wait and see what she brings back to us.
Yeah, and I think the second phase of that is whatever the new design is, I still want the citizens to be involved, as we've talked about what's saved and what isn't, whether it's incorporated in the new design, whether it's sent to the museum, or whether we have a part of the new building as a memorial to or tribute to the yacht club. So because of that, I'd still like to have those citizens that have been in the city for a long time and grew up with the yacht club to at least be involved in the process of determining what we say. But we've had those discussions many times beyond what may be decided about moving the building.
That is still the plan, and that is what part of the timeline, which is putting that stakeholder group together, determining what's going to be saved, what is going to be preserved for the Historical Society. That is still all a part of the plan. Okay, I got direction. The only other item I'd like to mention regarding the yacht club is beginning tomorrow morning, the vessel recovery company, ACT, that is utilizing the site is going to be providing some in-kind services to the city so that we don't have additional costs getting the site prepared for ultimately being refurbished. And the in-kind services that they're going to be providing is to be raising the beach restroom, the 2 pavilions, and the playground. That is going to start taking place tomorrow morning. So the park is open as of Monday. Some residents will see some buildings on the beach. If they are attending there tomorrow, they will see that activity. So I wanted you all to be aware that that is going to be happening, but it is nothing to do with the Inner Donut and the Rotino Center or the ballroom. So I just wanted the community, everybody to be aware. So tomorrow morning. Other than that, no report.
Okay, thank you. Item 13, time, place of future meeting. We have a committee of the whole meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, July 19th, 2023 at 9 a.m. here in council chambers. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.